You've heard of zombie apocalypses in movies, but August 6th, 1915, the German army faced something worse. 900 Russian soldiers, half dead from chlorine gas, rose from their trenches and charged. Their skin hung in tatters, blood poured from their mouths, and they coughed up pieces of their own lungs. The Germans ran. 7,000 men fled from 900 walking corpses. This is the attack of the dead men at Osowiec Fortress. If you value documented World War I history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Norman Stone's The Eastern Front and Barbara Tuchman's The Guns of August. Now back to the story. Osowiec Fortress sits in northeastern Poland, guarding the railway to St. Petersburg. The Germans need this route. Without it, their Eastern Front supply lines collapse. But these aren't ordinary defenses. Russian engineers built Osowiec in the swamps. 3 forts connected by trenches, surrounded by water and wire. The garrison holds 13,000 men under General Nikolai Brzezinski. German intelligence counts the guns. 44 heavy pieces, hundreds of machine guns. They'll need something special. The fortress design is genius. Fort 1 sits on the main island, connected to Forts 2 and 3 by wooden causeways through the marsh. The swamps make flanking attacks impossible. Artillery fire sinks into the wet ground instead of shattering concrete. The Russians flood the approaches during spring thaw, creating a water barrier 3 miles wide. Only one road leads through the wetlands, and it's covered by interlocking fields of fire. February 19th. 15. German 8th Army arrives under General Erich von Falkenhayn. 4 divisions, 60,000 men. The siege train includes the same guns that crushed Liège and Namur, 420mm Big Berthas, 305mm Austrian mortars. The ammunition depot at Malawa holds 50,000 heavy shells. The German staff expects Osowiec to fall in 72 hours. The bombardment begins February 25th at dawn. German artillery fires from positions 4 miles west of the fortress. The barrage continues for 6 days without pause. Shells fall every 30 seconds. The noise can be heard in Warsaw, 100 miles south. Russian defenders huddle in underground bunkers as concrete walls crack and collapse, but the foundation holds. Swamp mud absorbs the shockwaves that would shatter fortress walls built on solid ground. German infantry attacks begin March 1st. 3 waves, 15,000 men. They advance across the flooded approaches on wooden walkways built by pioneer companies. Russian machine guns fire from concealed positions in the marsh grass. The walkways collapse under artillery fire. German casualties mount. First wave loses 800 men before reaching the outer wire. Second wave breaks against the same obstacles. Third wave never forms up. The attack fails. Artillery bombardment resumes March 2nd. This time it continues for 73 days. 300,000 rounds fired at a half square mile target. The largest concentration of firepower in military history to that point. German gunners fire by schedule, heavy mortars at dawn, field guns during midday, howitzers at dusk. The routine becomes mechanical. Load, fire, load. Fire. The shells keep coming. Russian casualties mount daily. Food runs short. Water pumps break down from constant shelling. Medical supplies dwindle. The garrison shrinks from 13,000 to 8,000 by June, but the railway stays open. Trains still run to St. Petersburg. The fortress serves its purpose. The German losses climb higher. Artillery consumes 40 tons of shells per day. The cost in gold marks exceeds the fortress's strategic value, but pride is at stake now. Kaiser Wilhelm himself orders Osowiec taken before summer ends. The siege becomes personal for German commanders. They've thrown everything at these Russian swamps and still failed. General Max von Gallwitz arrives July 15th with new orders. Chemical warfare. The gas attack planned for Osowiec will be the largest in military history. Bigger than Ypres, bigger than anything tried before. 6,800 chlorine cylinders trucked in from German factories. Each cylinder holds 10 kilograms of liquid chlorine under pressure. Total payload, 68 tons. Enough poison gas to kill 50,000 men. German engineers position the cylinders along a 2-mile front west of Fort 1. The installation takes 3 weeks. Each cylinder connects to a manifold system with shut-off valves. Wind gauges measure air movement every hour. Weather stations track pressure changes. The Germans need perfect conditions. East wind at 5 to 15 kilometers per hour, no rain, clear skies, temperature above 10 degrees Celsius. The target zone covers Russian trenches from the northern marsh to the southern causeway. Intelligence estimates place 3,500 defenders in this sector. The 226th Infantry Regiment holds the main line. The 19th Infantry Regiment covers the flanks. Artillery positions sit 500 meters behind the front trenches. The Germans plan to follow the gas cloud with infantry assault within 30 minutes. Russian intelligence knows something is coming. Patrols report strange activity behind German lines. Trucks arriving at night. Work details digging new positions. But they don't understand what they're seeing. Chemical warfare is still new. The Russians have no experience with gas attacks, no protective equipment, no training, no countermeasures. July passes, August arrives. The weather refuses to cooperate. Wind direction stays wrong, west to east when the Germans need north to south. Rain falls every few days, washing potential gas concentrations from the air. Temperatures drop below the operational threshold. German meteorologists wait for the perfect storm that never comes. August 5th. High-pressure system moves in from the Baltic. Wind shifts to favorable direction. Temperature rises to 18 degrees. Humidity drops. The conditions align. General Gallwitz issues the attack order. Gas release at 4 in the morning. Infantry assault at 4:30. Artillery support beginning at 5. The timing is precise. The plan is perfect. German infantry forms up in 3 waves behind their own trenches. First wave, 2,400 men from the 41st Infantry Division. Second wave, 2,600 men from the Landwehr Reserve Corps. Third wave, 2,200 men from the Guard Reserve Division. Total assault force, 7,000 men. They wear primitive gas masks, cotton pads soaked in sodium carbonate solution. Better than nothing, maybe. 4 in the morning. August 6th. Wind direction perfect at 12 kilometers per hour. Temperature 17 degrees. German engineers open the gas valves in sequence from north to south. Yellow-green clouds pour from the cylinders like liquid smoke. The chlorine is heavier than air. It flows along the ground, settling in shell craters and trenches. The cloud moves east at walking pace toward Russian positions. Chlorine gas kills by drowning. It reacts with moisture in the lungs to form hydrochloric acid. The acid burns lung tissue from the inside. Victims cough up blood mixed with pieces of their own lungs. Skin turns green from chemical burns. Eyes stream tears that burn like acid. Death takes 5 to 15 minutes. It's not a gentle death. Russian sentries see the yellow cloud approaching. Some run. Others wrap wet rags around their faces. The only protection they have. Most stand their ground because they don't understand the danger. Chlorine gas is invisible death. You can't fight it with rifles or bayonets or courage. You can only run or die. The gas reaches Russian trenches at 4:15. Men start dying immediately. The poison settles in low spots where soldiers take cover. Bunkers become death traps. Underground shelters fill with concentrated chlorine. The gas is silent. No explosions, no shrapnel. Just green death creeping along the ground. But something goes wrong with the German plan. The wind shifts. Instead of blowing steadily east, it starts swirling. Eddies and cross currents scatter the gas cloud. Parts of the Russian line get heavy concentrations. Other sections barely get touched. The neat, uniform death the Germans planned becomes random and patchy. 13 companies of German infantry wait behind their own lines. They're supposed to advance when the gas clears. Find empty trenches full of corpses. Occupy Russian positions without a fight. Set up defensive positions before Russian reserves can counterattack. The plan assumes total success. Dead men don't fight back. 4:20 in the morning. The gas starts to dissipate. German officers check their watches. Time to advance. Whistles blow. 7,000 men climb out of their trenches and start walking east. They expect to find silence, empty positions, victory without casualties. Instead, they hear coughing, choking sounds, but also something impossible. The metallic click of rifle bolts working. Someone is still alive in those trenches. Someone is loading weapons. The German advance slows as soldiers strain to hear over their own footsteps. The gas cloud thins. German infantry can see the Russian trenches now. What they see stops them cold. Men are standing at the firing positions. But these aren't normal men anymore. Their skin hangs in green strips from chemical burns. Blood streams from their eyes and mouths. Every breath brings up more blood mixed with chunks of lung tissue. They look like walking corpses. 900 Russians survived the gas attack out of 3,000 in the target zone. Most are dying from chlorine poisoning. Their lungs are destroyed. They have minutes to live, maybe hours, but they're still standing, still holding their rifles, still ready to fight. Lieutenant Vladimir Kotlinski commands the 226th Infantry Regiment survivors. Half his face is gone from chemical burns. He can barely speak through his damaged throat, but he sees the German infantry approaching. 7,000 men walking across no man's land like they're on parade. The arrogance infuriates him. Kotlinski gives the order that changes military history. Fix bayonets, prepare to charge. The 900 dying men understand. They have one attack left in them before the poison finishes its work. They'll make it count. Russian rifles crack. German soldiers in the first wave start falling. These aren't random shots from panicked men. These are aimed volleys from experienced soldiers. The dead men can still shoot. The German advance falters as officers try to process what they're seeing. Then the impossible happens. The Russian corpses climb out of their trenches. 900 men who should be dead by now stagger forward through their own wire. Blood pours from their mouths with every step. Skin peels off their hands as they grip their rifles. They look like something from a nightmare. They move like ghosts, but they keep coming. German soldiers in the first wave panic. This isn't combat anymore. This is horror beyond human experience. Dead men walking out of poison gas clouds. Corpses that refuse to die. The retreat begins with individual soldiers backing away from the advancing Russians. Then whole squads break and run. Panic spreads through German ranks like wildfire. Second wave troops see the first wave fleeing and don't know why. Officers shout orders that nobody follows. The sight of 900 bloody, gas-burned Russians stumbling forward breaks something fundamental in German morale. 7,000 men flee from 900 walking corpses. The retreat becomes a stampede. German soldiers abandon their weapons, throw down their equipment, run back through their own wire obstacles. Artillery positions get overrun as fleeing infantry crashes through gun lines. Officers try to stop the rout with drawn pistols. Nothing works. Terror has taken control. Russian artillery, positioned outside the gas target zone, opens fire on the retreating Germans. Shells land among packed columns of fleeing soldiers. The casualties mount rapidly. German 8th Army loses more men in 30 minutes of retreat than the Russians lost to 68 tons of chlorine gas. If you value documented World War I history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Norman Stone's The Eastern Front and Barbara Tuchman's The Guns of August. Now back to the story. The 900 dead men pursue the Germans for half a mile before collapsing. Chlorine poisoning finally wins. Most fall where they stand, rifles still in their hands. They've bought time for Russian reinforcements to arrive. Fresh troops from the reserve positions take over the abandoned German trenches. The counterattack turns into a rout. German casualties for August 6th, total 4,000 men, killed, wounded, missing, or captured. The largest single-day loss for German forces on the Eastern Front to that point. All because of 900 Russians who refused to die when they were supposed to. The chemical weapon that was meant to guarantee victory created the most terrifying defeat in German military experience. Russian reinforcements pour into Osowiec through the evening. The 7th Infantry Division arrives by rail from Warsaw. The 23rd Artillery Brigade deploys new guns in positions captured from the Germans. By midnight, the fortress garrison is stronger than before the gas attack. The siege has turned into a victory. General Gallwitz reports the failure to Berlin, chemical attack successful. Enemy casualties heavy, but infantry assault repulsed with severe losses. The official report doesn't mention dead men rising from their graves. German high command wouldn't believe it anyway. Some truths are too strange for military dispatches. The attack of the dead men becomes legend within days. German soldiers spread the story through letters home. Russian propaganda turns it into a symbol of Slavic determination against German brutality. Newspapers across Europe print sensationalized accounts. The truth gets buried under layers of mythology and nationalism, but the real story is documented in medical records from Russian field hospitals. 63 soldiers from the 226th Infantry Regiment treated for severe chlorine gas poisoning on August 6th, all showing identical symptoms: chemical burns, lung damage, blood poisoning. Most died within 72 hours. The lucky ones lasted a week. German intelligence files from 1915 contain detailed analysis of the Osowiec attack, chemical payload calculations, wind speed measurements, casualty estimates, but buried in the appendix is a single line that tells the real story. Enemy resistance unexpectedly fierce despite successful gas deployment. German bureaucracy reducing terror to paperwork. The siege continues for 9 more days. German artillery resumes bombardment, but the heart has gone out of the attack. Morale collapses after the failed gas assault. Soldiers refuse to advance across ground where dead men once walked. The fortress becomes a symbol of something beyond military strategy, the refusal of human will to accept defeat. August 15th. Orders arrive from Berlin. Strategic withdrawal to defensive positions. The Great Retreat begins. All Russian forces pull back to shorter lines closer to St. Petersburg. Osowiec Fortress gets abandoned not because of German assault, but because of strategic necessity. The garrison destroys the fortifications and evacuates by rail. German troops occupy empty ruins on August 16th. They find Russian trenches filled with corpses from the gas attack. Mass graves hastily dug behind the main line. Blood-soaked uniforms scattered across the battlefield. The evidence of August 6th lies everywhere. But the men who created the legend are gone. Military historians study Osowiec for lessons about chemical warfare and morale. The gas attack was technically perfect. Concentration, wind direction, timing all optimal. But it failed because the planners didn't account for human psychology. Dead men walking out of poison clouds create terror that no amount of training can overcome. Chemical weapons spread across the Western Front after Osowiec. Gas masks become standard equipment. Counter-battery fire targets, gas cylinder positions. The tactical advantage disappears within months, but the psychological impact remains. Soldiers on both sides know that death can take many forms, and some are worse than others. The fortress ruins still stand in modern Poland, now a tourist destination and historical monument. Visitors walk through the German trenches where gas cylinders once sat. They see Russian defensive positions where 900 men made their last stand. Tour guides tell sanitized versions of the story, skipping the details about skin hanging in strips. Recent archaeological work at Osowiec has uncovered evidence that confirms the historical accounts. Mass graves from August 1915 contain 63 bodies in Russian uniforms. Bone analysis shows distinctive lung damage from chlorine gas exposure. Chemical residue in tooth, enamel matches, chlorine compounds. DNA testing confirms these are soldiers from the 226th Infantry Regiment. The excavation also found personal effects buried with the dead. Pocket watches stopped at different times between 4 and 6 in the morning on August 6th. Wedding rings worn smooth by nervous fingers. Orthodox crosses clutched in skeletal hands. Letters from home, undelivered. The ink faded, but the words still readable after a century underground. One letter stands out, written by Private Ivan Petrov to his wife in Tula. Never sent. Found in his uniform pocket during excavation. The Germans bring poison wind against us tomorrow. We have wet rags and prayers. It may be enough. If not, tell our son his father stood with his regiment. Some things matter more than breathing. Petrov's bones show severe chemical burns. He was one of the 900 who charged. Gas masks hang in the Fortress Museum now, silent testimony to a lesson learned too late. The display case includes German models captured after August 6th, abandoned during the retreat, Russian masks developed later in the war, modern protective equipment from both world wars, evolution of human ingenuity applied to surviving poison air. But the centerpiece of the museum is simpler. A single Russian rifle, model 1891, found in no man's land between the trenches. The bayonet is still fixed. The bolt is open. The chamber is empty. A dead man's weapon, dropped where its owner finally fell. Still pointing east toward the enemy who ran from walking corpses on a summer morning when hell came to the Polish swamps and the dead refused to die.